If you're looking for an easy, quick and practical way to create stylized clothing, let me show you my approach to creating this in Blender. Let's get to it. Hello everyone, I'm Nemesis from Ngo85. Welcome to my channel. For this video, I will be creating some pants, a shirt and a vest. You will see the masking techniques I use to quickly select some areas, how to extract them to make your clothes, how I use the Quad Remesher add-on to enhance the topology. You will see a bit of a UV unwrapping and texturing, how I use face sets to my advantage, a bit of retopology, and also the usage of VDM brushes. So let's begin. I will be using for this example this model provided by Blender, as it is fully retopologized. I will leave the link in the description so you can get it. To make everything easier with the clothing process, I would like to have more space in this area. For this, I will go into Sculpt mode and first click on Face Sets from Visible to remove the current face sets. Then, with the last of face sets, I make a selection of the arms. With the draw face sets, I can improve the selection by pressing Ctrl. You should press Ctrl and click and drag from the color you want to use. If you want to remove, you do the same but from the opposite color. Knowing this, I continue cleaning the selection. Happy with the selection, I can now use the pose brush to move the arms. But first, in the brush settings, you want to ensure to have the deformation target as geometry, the deformation as scale/translate, and the rotation origins as face sets. Now I can use my face sets to open the arms. I can now remove this selection with the face sets from Visible. For the purpose of making clothes, I will need a more subdivided mesh, but first I will duplicate this model and save it in case later I need to do some adjustments, since having less polygons will make it easier. Then I rename it and hide it. So let's begin with the pants, as I think will be the easiest. Back in Sculpt mode, I will be making some selections using some face sets, as I found them to be more accurate than the masking brush. And for this, I will be using the box select. Before I proceed, I will first subdivide the model with Ctrl 3 to add 3 levels of subdivision to improve the selection. With the box select, I make my selection for the pants. Now with the draw face sets and pressing Shift, I can smooth the edges of the selection. For this one, as before, I will press Ctrl to remove some of the selection. I can now smooth the edges at the bottom of the pants. The next step is to mask this selection, and to do this, having the cursor in the non-selected area, I will press H to hide everything except for the face sets. With everything hidden, I can go to Mask and click on Fill Mask, and as you can see, now I have some sort of a perfect selection. Next is to press Alt-H to review the rest of the model. Go to the Face Sets tab and click on Face Sets from Visible to remove them. Now you can better see the benefits of masking this way. Having this selection, I will go back to the Masks tab and click on Mask Extract. I do not want it to be solid, as I will be adjusting this later, so I just uncheck the box and leave the rest of the settings as they are. After the extraction is completed, Blender will take me to the object mode. I will focus on the pants with the slash key. If we take this to the edit mode, we can see how dense it is, which makes it hard to manipulate. That is why in object mode, with the Quad Remesher add-on, I retopologize this, picking the quad count and having my symmetry on and just clicking on remesh. Now that this is remeshed, in edit mode we can see how nice the topology looks, bearing in mind that this was done automatically in a matter of seconds. Please understand that this is not perfect, as in reality you would like to control the direction of your loops, and for that you will have to do this manually, but to create clothes this is good enough. Pressing the slash key, I will bring back the rest of the mesh. The goal now is to have the pants on top and not touching the rest of the object underneath. To achieve this, I will inflate the pants by pressing Shift A, and with the Shift key pressed to do this slightly, I will drag the mouse up and start inflating the pants. Now I check the model from different angles to ensure nothing is touching. The next thing I like to do is to better align the edges of the pants, and I do this by selecting the edges with the Alt and clicking, and then right click and picking the Relax from the Loop Tools menu. This is a native add-on from Blender. Having this done, I can press Shift R to repeat the last operation, then I repeat the same for the bottom edges. For ease of work, the next thing I like to do is to mark the seams and unwrap the mesh at this stage. While touching my real pants, I can have an idea for where the seams are supposed to go. First, with the bottom edges selected, I press Ctrl E and click on Mark Seam. I have a pie menu for this, so you will see me using this one instead. The next seam I'm going to mark is the one along the sides. So with Alt click, I can mark the loop. This would have been way harder to do with the more dense mesh we had before. To have the same selection over the other side, we go to Select and click on Select Mirror. The selection was just moved to the other side, so to correct this, we open this menu and check the Extend box. Now with the selection on both sides, I can mark the seams. The next seam to mark will be the one at the top. Now we mark the seam located in the inner part by picking the center loop, then mark seam. You should be marking another seam that passed through the back area, but I want to have a better transition with the texture, so I will leave it as it is. This is not a video on texturing, but I will show you how I handled this. I go to UV editing, select the whole mesh with the A key, then press U and click on Unwrap. Looking good. Back in object mode, I will add a solidify modifier for thickness. Then, while pressing Shift, I drag until I'm happy. Then I apply the modifier. If I go to the UV editing, now I have more mesh to unwrap, but the seams from the beginning are being used. So I can unwrap again and we'll have pretty much a duplicate of the outer and inner faces. I have the best add-on for packing, which is the UV Pack Master. With this, I will align the islands that are similar. I'm doing this as I don't mind to have the same texture for the inner and outer faces. Now I can group this by similarity, and when I go to pack, I can lock the groups to ensure that they are not moved during packing. This add-on uses an algorithm to make sure that the space is used in the best possible way so we can have a good texture resolution. So just to show you how it looks, I will add a multi-res modifier with 3 subdivisions and head to my Asset Browser workspace. Here, I can use one of my texture collections I got from the Blender market. I will leave the link in the description. As you can see, this looks good. Now I will be working on the top, but first, with the pants selected, I will press F2 to rename them and then press M to create a collection for the clothes. Then I can hide the collection to focus on the top. In sculpt mode, I will first remove the mask with Alt M and proceed in the same manner as before, but this time I will be using the lasso selection. I will begin by marking the curvature of the neck and selecting the rest of the body, plus adding the wrist to have a whole sort of shirt selection. Having this first selection, I will use the draw face sets to clean it by adding, removing and smoothing like we did with the pants. From this point, I can now hide the rest of the mesh, fill with the mask and do my extraction as before. I normally use 4000 for the quad count, but you may adjust this based on the mesh you're working on. In edit mode, I will inflate the shirt with Alt S and holding Shift to do this slowly. Next step is to relax the edges with the loop tools. Remember to press Shift R to repeat the relax operation a couple of times. With the edges relaxed, I can now mark the seams. Remember to look and touch your clothes for this so you can better understand where those seams are supposed to be. As a reminder, use the select mirror to mark the same edges on the other side. I cannot get a better unwrapping because the loops being calculated with the Quad Remesher, they are not following the best flow, but it is good enough for this exercise. In the UV editing, I will unwrap and deal with some issues I found with the selection. During the process of making the seams, I ran into proximity issues, showing why it's good to have your mesh in a T-pose. In this case, I have an A-pose, but I was able to make an adjustment and get away with it. Having dealt with the issue, I will add some thickness and apply the modifier to then unwrap it again and pack my island. Let's check how this looks by adding a multi-res and adding a material from the Asset Browser. I'm using a similar material but from a different pack. Here we can see some stretching issues. To solve this, I will use the Blender's native add-on Arrow Mirror and apply it to ensure having an even mesh. Back in the UV editing, I can again unwrap this and pack it. And as you can see, the texture is properly applied. Let's rename this and move it to the clothing collection to hide it and focus on the next piece. Now I will make the vest, and this will be a bit different as I will not be using the Quad Remesher, but instead I will retopo the vest with Retopoflow. The reason I do this is because I want to decide where the loops should be located. This will improve my selection and the unwrapping process. Retopoflow is the best add-on in my opinion for retopology within Blender. I will leave you a link in the description for the free and the paid version. You may opt for the paid version to help the developers. Retopoflow requires the mesh to be not too dense, something under 1 million polygons. To check this, I will activate my statistics, and as you can see, this is over 1 million. From this point we can decimate, but in my case, since I saved a version of the model in low poly, I will be using that one. This model allows me to add 2 levels of subdivision and still be on the safe side to use Retopoflow. So with the model selected, I can go to the add-on and begin the retopo process. I will not explain how to use the tool in this video, but I will leave a link in the description for the best tutorial you will find regarding this add-on. Let's begin by enabling the symmetry. When dealing with any retopology, the first thing to do is to mark the main loops, and from there you can make the connections. I will begin with the neck and with the contour tool to quickly mark a loop around it, pressing Ctrl. Holding Shift and scrolling with the mouse, I can reduce the amount of vertices. Always work low and increase accordingly. I will do the same in the abdominal area, and I can quickly add some more loops. For the loop around the shoulder, I will be using the poly pen and just go around the area. Having the major loops created, I can tweak the vertices into a better position, preparing to start making my connections. With Ctrl R, I add the first loop as I want to connect the neck with the rest of the body. As you can see, this loop is going straight, but that is not what I want, as I would like the loop to go around the neck. To do this, I will remove these two faces and connect them in a way that the loop will flow around the neck and down to the bottom of the vest. But first, as I would like to have the vest open, I will add a new loop and remove some faces from the middle. Now I can make my connection and move the vertices in place. As you can see now, the loop is flowing the way I want to. Now the next step is to make my connections, making sure to have quads everywhere. Time to add some extra loops. The next step is to relax the mesh. For this, with the contour tool, I select the edges of the main loops. Having them selected, I go to the pinning and seams. What this does is to keep the edges selected fixed so they won't move while I'm relaxing the mesh. Holding Z, I can start relaxing the vertices to make the topology more even. The good thing about the pinning is that I'm not messing much with the boundaries. As I Retopoflow, I can now inspect the model, and in object mode I can apply the modifiers with Ctrl A and clicking on Visual Geometry to mesh. In edit mode, I will repeat the same process as before, first by inflating the mesh. The next step will be to relax the edges of the mesh. Now I will mark the seams to unwrap the vest. Having the vest unwrapped, I can now add some thickness and the multi-rest modifier. Since I apply a solidify modifier, now I have to unwrap again and pack the island. Let's apply some texture to see how it looks with the unwrapping. I like how it looks. To keep it all organized, I will rename it and place it in the clothing collection. Now we can see the clothes created all together. Now we can get ready to add some folds. So I will begin with the top, then I will hide the vest and the pants. Now in sculpt mode, I can inspect the model. Even though I'm looking for a more stylized look, I'm still gathering references from real clothing. I want to start working with the neck, wrist and bottom of the shirt, since the wrinkles or folds will have a more fixed pattern. To make the process easier, in edit mode, I will select a loop of faces and with Ctrl+, I will grow the selection. I will also do a selection for the wrist and the neck of the shirt. Having my selection ready, I go back to sculpt mode, then to the Face Sets tab and click on Face Sets from Edit Mode selection. I can now improve the selection with the Draw Face Sets. Take your time and go slow when smoothing, as you may end up pulling too much the mesh. No new tricks here, guys. I will just hide the rest of the mesh, fill with a mask and reveal back the whole model so I can work within the masked area. So I can now invert the mask to begin adding some details. For the details, I will be using the draw brush and will tweak the strength a bit and start making some lines on the wrist with the symmetry on. I will approach the bottom of the shirt the same way. As I will have the arms blocking me from the side view, I will hide these ones by pressing Alt-B for the box hide and mark the area that I want to maintain visible. Now I can better see what I'm doing. With Alt-B, I'm bringing back the parts of the model that were hidden. For the color, I would like it to be a bit more puffy or to look like it has a bit more volume, so for this I will be using the inflate brush. With the draw brush, I will repeat the same I did to the other parts of the shirt. I can now remove the mask and check my results. With an increased resolution, I proceed to smooth the borders of the parts I worked on to make them less harsh after removing the mask. I can move forward and do some folds. Normally when I do this, I use VDM brushes as it makes it way easier and faster, but for this part of the video I will do it manually and later you see me using the VDMs. For the folds, I will be using first the draw brush and make sure to remove the symmetry. I'm looking for a stylized look, so I have my Pbr Ref open in a second monitor with my references. Let's do one in here, then another one here. I feel they look too sharp, so I will increase the size of the brush a bit and try it again. This looks better. So I can now continue with the rest of the sleeve. Need to go around with the fold. Let's add some at the back. Not two folds will be the same, so I will be changing the size of the brush as well as smoothing some areas and folds more than others. The folds will cause some sort of distortion on the shape of the shirt, so with the grab brush I will pull some of the folds away from the current form of the mesh. Now with the crease brush I will mark some areas by the borders of the current folds. I soften the folds to have them more integrated as they look too sharp at this stage. Remember, I'm making a stylized cloth, and for this purpose I like to use a scrape brush to flatten some areas. I normally like to do this along the bottom half of the folds. With the draw sharp and holding control, I will mark some of the highest points of the folds as well as introducing some small wrinkles. Let's work on the folds coming from the armpit to the shoulder. Time to smooth a bit more. Not having folds on the other side is already bothering me, so let's work on that. Looking at my reference, I will start adding some folds to the center of the shirt. Same as before, I will be using a combination of draw sharp and draw brush and smoothing. Let's continue with the back. While using the draw sharp, I'm inverting the brush, pressing Ctrl to create those sharp areas and without pressing for the crevices. Let's take a quick look at how it looks with the texture. I'm happy with the results, so I can move to the pants. To begin with the pants, I need to make a small correction here using the inflate brush. Let's hide the shirt so we can keep our focus on the pants. Similar as with the shirt, I will be selecting one of the areas to give a different look, in this case the waistband. I could use the mask brush to make a selection and protect the area, but as you will see, this is not as accurate as the face set tool. Having a selection with the face sets also makes it easier to clean it. Now I will do the masking as you have seen before. Having my mask, I can invert and smooth the mask to then use the mesh filter tool on inflate to give some thickness to the waistband. From this point, I will proceed in the same manner as with the shirt, so I will time-lapse this portion of the video. I bring back the t-shirt to see how it looks in combination with the pants, and since I want this one to be over the pants, I will use the grab brush to move it in place. I do a bit of smoothing to check my clothes with some textures on. I'm also happy with the pants, so we can start working on the vest. Let's bring back the vest. And as we can see, we need to inflate this one a bit more to be over the shirt. This part looks like this due to the folds in the shirt, so I can just inflate a bit more. Apart from giving you a way to do the clothing without the Quad Remesher, I also made the vest the way I did to be able to select only the loops I want based on their flow. So I can now easily select the loops I want to protect. Having my selection, I can now head back to sculpt mode and turn the selection into facets. With this selection, I just need to do a bit of refining with the draw facets. With the mask in place, I can now use the mesh filter to give more thickness to this area. With the draw brush selected, I can start doing some sewing lines, and I can activate the stylized stroke for more control. Let's continue around the model. I will later use a VDM to add more detail. I want to make some simple pockets, so I will be using the mask brush and then add some volume. To make the selection, I will be changing the stroke method to line. While pressing Ctrl, I can then do a bit of a cleanup. Same as with the other pieces of clothing, I will add some details in my selected areas. I like how it's looking so far. Let's remove the mask. I will crease the pockets a bit. Different than with the other pieces, I will be using VDM brushes for the folds. You will find in the description the link to the brush pack I'm using. Let's begin with the back. For the front, I protect the pockets with a mask, and with a different brush I start adding the folds. Let's try a different one for the sides. Now let's smooth by holding Shift. I will continue to add folds to other areas. Time to switch the VDM to add some stitches or sewing lines to the vest. You can see how convenient can be to have face sets, but more importantly, a good selection coming from a good topology, in which the loops were placed in a certain way on purpose. Let's take a look to the model. I like the way it's looking. Remember taking breaks. I took a break and started to see areas that needed to be smoother. It is important to move away from time to time to look at the model with fresh eyes, making small adjustments here and there. I can now head to my asset browser and test some textures on the clothes. And that's it guys for this video. If you enjoyed the content, please consider to like, share and subscribe. And as always, if you have any suggestions to improve the channel, please let me know down below in the comment sections. Thank you for watching and see you soon.